I'm Halle Berry, an ER doctor running on more caffeine than common sense most days. My world? A constant hum of machines, frantic footsteps, and 3 a.m. trauma calls. It's fast, loud, and sometimes heartbreaking. Social life? That word became a myth after med school. But tonight, my best friend staged an intervention. "You're coming out with us, Halle. No arguments." Jess was adamant, her tone the kind that ends all negotiations. Next thing I knew, I was yanked out of my scrubs and stuffed into a little black dress I forgot I even owned. The music thumped so loud at the party, I could feel it in my bones. Everyone around me looked like they were straight out of college, bright-eyed, energized, and full of whatever optimism I'd misplaced back in residency. I clutched a drink that looked more radioactive than refreshing. Jess nudged me playfully. "Loosen up, it's not a board exam." "I feel like I just walked into a teen drama set," I muttered, scanning the sea of strangers. "Give it 1 hour. Miserable? We'll bail. Deal?" I didn't even get a chance to answer before it happened. Someone bumped into me and my glowing drink splashed down the front of my dress. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," a guy blurted, grabbing some napkins. I turned, ready to unleash the classic ER death glare, but something stopped me. He had this goofy grin and an apologetic shrug. "I'm a walking disaster. Seriously." "It's fine, it's just a drink," I said, more surprised by my calm than anything else. "I'm Alex," he said, offering his hand. "Halle and currently soaked. Let me make it up to you. I promise this one won't leave your dress looking like a science experiment." He led me to the bar and handed me a simple glass of red wine. Safe, sane. "So, Halle, what do you do when you're not surviving glowing cocktails?" I smiled over the rim of my glass. "I'm an ER doc." "Whoa, that's intense. I sell construction materials, way less blood. But we both deal with messes, right?" We laughed, and somehow we found a quiet corner. He didn't flinch at my war stories from the ER, and I genuinely cracked up over his tales of near disasters on job sites. By the end of the night, Alex asked for my number. "Maybe next time we meet, neither of us ends up soaked," he joked. "Sure, why not?" I replied, surprising myself. Later, lying in bed, I got a text from him. "Good night, Dr. Cocktail." I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. 1 year later, I was standing across from him at an altar saying, "I do." Married life started out sweet. We settled into a cozy home with 2 coffee mugs, 1 mortgage, and big dreams. Then one evening, over dinner, he asked, "So, when should we start trying for a baby?" I froze mid-bite. "Alex, we agreed. Careers first, kids later." "I know," he said, but Mom keeps asking. You know how she gets." I rolled my eyes. "We are not having a baby because your mother's bored." But the topic didn't die. If anything, it bloomed into a constant, creeping vine. His mom, Linda, called daily. "Any good news?" "When are you giving me a grandchild?" "Don't wait too long, Halle. You're not getting younger." She even slipped in a few guilt bombs like, "Alex deserves to be a father." One evening, drained from a double shift, I answered without checking the caller ID. "Well, got news for me?" she chirped. "No, Linda, we're not trying yet," I said, forcing calm. "You're being selfish, Halle. This isn't just about you." I gripped the phone so hard my fingers ached. "Linda, this is between Alex and me. Goodbye." The pressure at home and work felt like a 2-ton weight. Every night, Alex would gently, then not so gently, bring it up again. "Maybe we just stop being careful," he offered. "I can't do this tonight, Alex," I groaned, kicking off my shoes. Next morning, I sat across from him at the breakfast table, hands wrapped around my coffee mug like armor. "Alex, I love you, but this conversation is exhausting. Let's stick to the plan." He sighed. "Okay, I'll talk to Mom, I promise." But peace was short-lived. One night I got home early. The house was quiet, too quiet. Then I heard voices, his voice and another. I paused outside the office door. "She still thinks she's taking her birth control," Alex said. My heart stopped. "You replaced them, right?" That was Linda's voice, small and sharp through the speakerphone. "Yes, just vitamins now," he replied casually, like we were discussing toothpaste. My breath caught, my chest tightened. When I stepped into the room, Alex jumped like he'd seen a ghost. "Halle, you're home early." "Cut the crap." "Halle, just listen. You messed with my body, my choices?" He reached out. I slapped his hand away. "You and your mom played God with my life. You had no right." "I just wanted us to be happy," he stammered. "By tricking me?" He begged me to sit. I walked right out. Despite everything, I agreed we both needed to get tested, to clear the air once and for all. At the clinic where I worked, the staff gave me space and respect. I sat alone with the results in my office. Mine, perfectly normal. His, male infertility, completely unable to father a child. The irony nearly made me laugh. I called my friend Mara, a reproductive specialist. Mara, can you double-check these results? She met me at a cafe, quiet, kind. Halle, there's no doubt. He's infertile. I'm so sorry. And just like that, my world shifted again. He'd sabotaged my meds, pressured me endlessly, accused me, when all along the problem was never mine. I didn't know how to tell him, didn't want to humiliate him. So I lied. That night, sitting on the couch with sunlight fading outside, he asked, "What did the test say?" "We're both okay, just minor issues," I said, pretending to believe it. His shoulders dropped with relief. "That's good. We'll keep trying." I nodded, but I felt sick inside. He smiled. I stared at him, wondering how everything could feel so broken. The days that followed were a blur of routine and pretending. Alex was more affectionate than usual, probably thinking we were finally on the same page. He made plans, browsed baby names, even downloaded a fertility app. I smiled through it all, nodding, playing the part. But every glance, every hug, it chipped away at me. One night, I found myself staring at the ceiling, wide awake while he snored softly beside me. I slipped out of bed and walked into the living room, the moon casting a pale light across the floor. I picked up my phone and called Mara. "It's me," I whispered. "I lied to him, told him everything was fine." Mara paused. "Halle, I understand, but this isn't something you can hide forever." "I know," I said, voice trembling, "but how can I be the one to crush him with that?" "It's not about crushing him. It's about telling the truth. This lie will rot everything between you." I knew she was right, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. Then life threw us a curveball. Alex got a job offer in another state. It was a big promotion. More money, more prestige. His eyes lit up talking about it, like a kid on Christmas morning. "Halle, it's everything we wanted. Come with me, we'll start fresh." Despite the storm between us, I said yes. I left behind the hospital that had been my second home. Saying goodbye to my colleagues felt like losing a part of myself. I cried alone in my car after my last shift. Still, I smiled for Alex's sake. We moved. He started his new job, and I settled into a quiet clinic. No more adrenaline rush, no crazy nights, just basic checkups and polite small talk. I missed the chaos of the ER, the sense of purpose. But I kept that to myself. Our new house was nice, too quiet. And our problems? They packed their bags and came right along with us. Linda still called, every month like clockwork. "Any good news yet?" she'd ask, her tone sharp under the fake cheer. I didn't know what Alex told her, but I saw how the calls drained him. He became distant, moody, sometimes cold. Then one night he snapped. "We're not getting any younger, Halle. You're a doctor. Can't you fix this?" I froze. I was setting the table and my hands started to tremble. "That's not fair," I said quietly. "No," he scoffed, tossing his phone onto the couch. "What's not fair is you doing nothing. Maybe if you weren't always at work—" "Stop," I cut in. "Being home more won't change the facts. You know that." He turned away, muttering, "Maybe another doctor would have figured it out." I almost told him right then, almost screamed the truth. But I didn't, because part of me still hoped we could salvage something, and part of me, maybe the foolish part, still loved him. The months blurred into a year, then two. Alex started staying late at work, weekend trips for conferences. I didn't ask questions, maybe because I already knew the answers, maybe because I couldn't bear to hear them aloud. Still, I held on. When our wedding anniversary came around, I decided to do something special. I booked a charming little hotel, made dinner reservations, bought a new dress. I was nervous, hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. I got home early, excited, ready. The house was empty. "No note, no text." I called, no answer. Something in my chest twisted. Then I remembered the tracking app we had on our phones. Just a safety thing. Harmless, until it wasn't. I opened it. He wasn't at work. He was at a restaurant across town. Hope, foolish, desperate, whispered that maybe he was planning a surprise. Something sweet. Something like the old Alex. I grabbed a cab and went straight there. The restaurant was upscale. Candlelight flickered on polished wood. I scanned the tables, and then I saw him. He was sitting in a corner booth, smiling. Across from him was a blonde woman, laughing. Her hand rested on the table, close to his. Too close. I watched as he reached out, touched her fingers, leaned in and whispered something. Then he did it. He reached over and gently caressed her belly. My stomach dropped. It was a small, tender gesture, but it said everything I didn't want to believe. She was pregnant. I stumbled back, out the door into the cool night air. My breaths came in short gasps. It wasn't work trips, it wasn't stress. It was her. I hailed a cab, barely getting the address out. My hands shook as I held onto the seat. Then, out of nowhere, I remembered the test results. Alex, infertile. I laughed. Not a happy laugh, the kind that bursts out when life twists so hard it breaks. He wasn't the father. He couldn't be. The irony hit like a freight train. I got home and packed, just the essentials. Clothes, papers, my dignity. I left behind the rest. The memories, the lies. And I went to that hotel room, the one I booked to save our marriage. Now it was my escape. The next morning I called a lawyer. One of my colleagues had given me his name months ago, just in case. I hadn't thought I'd actually use it. But there I was, sitting in a sleek downtown office, staring at legal documents I never thought I'd need. "We can file for divorce immediately," the lawyer explained, sliding forms across the table. "Given the evidence of infidelity and emotional manipulation, you have a strong case for a fair settlement." "Let's just get it done," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He nodded, respectful, no questions. That night, Alex called. And called again. And again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The next day, he got served. A few days later, we met at the lawyer's office. Him, me, and her. Yes, she was there too. She looked smug, sitting beside him like she belonged. I kept my expression neutral, professional, cold. As the lawyer laid out the terms, Alex looked at me like a stranger. "This is revenge, isn't it?" he snapped. "Because you couldn't give me a child?" I flinched, but the lawyer didn't skip a beat. "Mr. Reynolds, your infidelity is documented. The consequences are not up for debate." "She's punishing me," he muttered. "Maybe you're punishing yourself," I said calmly. Then it happened. The mistress, his mistress, gasped and grabbed her belly. She stood up quickly, her face twisted in pain. "My water just broke," she whimpered. Panic exploded across Alex's face. "Halle, please," he begged. "Can you help? She needs a doctor." "She needs a hospital, not me," I said coolly, standing. "I'm not the person you ask anymore." Still, somehow we all ended up at the hospital. Old instincts kicked in. I helped her into a wheelchair, gave basic instructions to the nurse, then stepped back. Hours passed. I sat alone, watching time crawl across the sterile white walls. Finally, a nurse emerged, smiling. "Healthy baby boy," she said. "Both are doing fine." I nodded, numb. Then I saw Alex walking toward me, pale and shaken. "Halle, there's something wrong. The baby." I tilted my head. "He's not mine," he whispered. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He's black." I blinked once, then twice, then the laugh burst out. It wasn't kind. It wasn't controlled. It was raw and almost feral. "Oh, Alex," I said, pulling a folded paper from my purse. It was his medical report, the one that confirmed his infertility. I handed it to him slowly. "You're not the father. You never were. And now you know how it feels to be lied to." He looked like the ground had fallen out from under him. I turned and walked away. That night, I checked into a new hotel and blocked his number. I was done. Completely. Back in my hometown, I returned to the hospital that had always felt like home. My old coworkers welcomed me like family. Their hugs, their laughter, it healed something deep in me. I was finally breathing again. But the past had one more trick to play. Linda, my ex-mother-in-law, she started calling me, first with guilt, then with threats. "Come back to him, Halle," she pleaded. "He's lost everything." "I'm not responsible for him," I replied. "He's drinking. He lost his job. He's a mess." "Not my mess," I said, and hung up. But she wasn't done. One afternoon, she showed up at the hospital, hair wild, eyes frantic. "Halle, please," she begged, grabbing my arm in the middle of the lobby. "Alex needs you. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. He talks about you constantly." "Linda," I said, lowering my voice, "I am not his wife. I am not his doctor. And I am not his savior." "You can't just abandon him," she screamed, drawing eyes from everyone in the waiting room. I stepped back. "This is a hospital, not a soap opera. Leave or I'll call security." She lunged forward again. I signaled the guard. When she resisted, I didn't hesitate. I called the police. Even as they escorted her out, she kept shouting, "You owe him! You were supposed to fix him." I stood tall. I owe him nothing. And I meant it. Life after Alex wasn't easy at first, but it was mine again. I woke up every morning in my own apartment, sunlight pouring through the curtains. No more arguments, no passive-aggressive silences, just peace. At the hospital, I felt like myself again, confident, respected, needed. There's something about walking into a place where people remember your name for the right reasons. My colleagues welcomed me with open arms. They didn't ask questions. They just hugged me, made bad coffee, and handed me charts like I'd never left. That's when I knew. I was home. I started pouring myself into work. Not out of escape, but because I loved it again. I joined a new clinical research team, helped streamline emergency protocols, and mentored new interns. And slowly life began to bloom again. I made time for friends, real friends. Jess dragged me to brunches where we laughed so hard we cried. I reconnected with family. I went on walks just because the weather was nice. I even bought a houseplant. It died, but I replaced it, and that felt like growth. I was healing. One day I was leaving work when I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Alex. Please don't block me yet. I just want to talk." I stared at it for a moment. Then I hit delete. I didn't need closure from him. I'd already given that to myself. A few weeks later, I heard from Mara. She told me Alex had been trying to get in touch with her too, asking questions about the test results, hoping for a loophole, a mistake. There wasn't one. He still didn't get it, still clinging to the idea that something, someone, was to blame for his unraveling life. But it wasn't me. It never was. For a long time, I carried shame that didn't belong to me. I second-guessed myself, wondered if I'd been too cold, too career-driven, not maternal enough. But now I know better. I was lied to, manipulated, gaslit, and I still chose compassion. I still chose grace. Even when I could have exposed him publicly, I didn't. Even when I could have humiliated him in court, I didn't. I walked away, quietly, strongly. That was the real win. Linda eventually stopped calling. Maybe she finally realized I was never coming back. Or maybe she just found another target for her frustrations. Either way, I was done playing the role of the responsible one in someone else's chaos. People ask me now if I'll ever remarry, if I still want children. And I tell them this: I want peace. I want truth. If love finds me again, it'll be on my terms. Until then, I have a life worth living, patience worth saving, friends worth laughing with, and a future that no longer scares me. Because now I trust myself. Fully. Completely. Unapologetically. And that is the most powerful kind of healing there is.